If you can on that, I don't know exactly what page that is still. Page 9. Thank you. Page 9. If you can reference that page. One of the things we talked about this morning in our new world of healthcare reform, which I think we all agree is happening at different levels of different states at this point in time, it's certainly happening, is that one of the things that I have been really developing over the last 30 years in consulting is the cornerstones of what the value-based group practice needs to have. And the cornerstones are those things that really you set your building on, is that they are those really, without the cornerstones, you're building cities. So it's very important that we have them. But and I want to thank you for your customer service this morning. Yeah, you did great. I came greeted Lloyd. Thank you very much. You knew my name. I mean, it was me. Thank you. But one cornerstone is integrated delivery. That means we're going to look at the wellness of the client. So let's look at the upper left. Wellness means we're not going to look at just the behavioral need. We're going to look at the wellness need around physical health, dental health. In many states, we're going into inclusive waivers where they're looking at dental, oral health. They're looking at behavioral health. They're looking at medical, primary care. They're looking at all of those things in one payment methodology, one MCO. So integrated is important. More importantly, integrated is important for you internally. What I want to suggest to you, and we're going to talk about this afternoon in Access after lunch, is that integrated means you have one process of doing things in your agency, regardless of where the client comes in. And we're going to talk about that, and we talked a little bit about a business case at the break. But I need to be able to say to any payer or any referral source, this is how we bring people into Beech, Brook. Not if you come here, you come in this way. If you come there, you come in this way. You all familiar with that? The average center we work with has 3 to 5 different intake to treatment processes. And you're going to have to look at that concept. So I need internal integration so I can look at external. The other thing is access and service capacity enhancement. We're going to talk about that after lunch, so I won't spend a lot of time. The primary customer service indicator that you can come up with, by the way, nationally, is are they getting treatment? I mean, that's really important, particularly for parents and guardians where they have a child adolescent who is really struggling, and the question is how quickly can they get help? Help, whatever that term help might mean. So we're going to look at access. Resource management, practice management, we talked about several of those points this morning, but we've got to manage our practices differently. But the one we're going to spend the next couple hours on is customer service. Customer service and image building. And what I mean by that is this. Community relations, I've defined, and by the way, I have customer service action plans that I'll be giving you and showing you. I also have some old, when I started my work years ago, I used to do community public information and public image building training. I have samples of those, Deborah and Jean, if you want copies, looking at no-cost, low-cost examples of branding. But community relations is a good little practical organization concerned in the market area, based on consistent development of marketing initiatives to share service delivery capacities, capabilities, and outcomes with the public. Now, what that means is, over time, has Beech Brook, over time, informed the publics. Publics is plural. It's not just those with Medicaid eligibility. It's not just those with referred from the criminal justice system. It's not just those who are referred from the school system. It's now with everyone, whether with the Affordable Care Act, having private insurance. So it's the third market referral. You know, what is your image or relations with those different publics around your market areas where you define those to be? Typically what we see or miss is a declining negative organizational public image drives myths. A couple of myths that we are working on with a couple of centers right now is you can't get in over there. Y'all familiar with the myth? You can't get in over there. You have to wait. You have to wait. So if the myth is, or if in fact that's the experience which is then perpetuated across the community, don't go over there because I went over and my child couldn't get in, then that becomes a myth, but more importantly becomes stigma. And so we become the industry that can't get people in. And candidly, nationally, that's our image. And I'm not going to put it in either way. It's the behavioral health, community-based programs. The image that we've had historically has been you can't get in over there where it's time like. And what we've been doing for the last, since 2007, is access redesign, same-day access. We work now with over 750 organizations to change their access to same day. just-in-time beds within 72 hours for psychiatry, and same day for med management. But the point is, those models start to change the stigma and the myth because we're now getting people in. Example, Child Adolescent Agency up in the Bronx, New York. Basically, they sent a brochure to 200 primary care medical practices. Their problem was they didn't have any private insurance plans. They had all Medicaid. Now, what's the problem with all Medicaid? Again, too much. There's no payer diversity here. So if Medicaid changes its rates, changes its structure, then they get pneumonia. So what they said is they sent out 200 brochures. A customer service supervisor called the different care managers or practice managers and said, "Did you get our brochure?" They sent them a chart of how long it took and where they could get into care. Their standardized access to care flow chart and time frames. They gave them a 1-800 number for them to call that was triaged by a nurse. If you call us from a primary care practice, we will triage you and get you in today. They showed that their next available appointment for therapy was 3 days post-intake. Their doctors were 5 days post-intake for psychiatry. Everybody catch all that? See, to make a business case to tell somebody externally, I've got to produce that capability internally. And so they sent this out. So guess what happened to the referrals? 137% increase. Now why? Because they went to a referral source that they had, the myth was you can't get in over there, don't refer them. And they said, we can get them in now and try us. You know, if you call us, we'll get them in. And they honored it. And so guess what else happened? They referred more. Now, to some staff that wasn't good news. But to the fact that they needed to diversify their payer mix, it was excellent news. In fact, what they started doing is opening until 9 at night. They were doing 9 to 1 on Saturday. They were doing intakes on Sunday. They did whatever it took to say to their external world, what? We can help you. And here's what it's going to take. They actually took their full-time staff, because they were in building down in Bronx, New York, very expensive land, real estate, and they took their full-time staff, and when they timed out, they brought in a part-time staff to take over their desk and office. They operated at night. And all I'm saying is they came up with a way. There were 800,000 in the hole when we started, to 1.3 million 9 months later in the positive. All I'm suggesting is they had to change their procedure. And they had to come against the stigma and the myth in their agents, about their agency. What's the myth or stigma around Beech Brook? Give me some. What do you hear? For outpatient, you can't get in? Okay. And this is not going to be, please don't hear this as critical to you. This is not about being critical, it's about learning. It's assessment, so, okay? Okay, if that's the image, then when I talk to a referral source and Deborah goes over and says, I want to talk to you about referring into our agency, can you see it doesn't work very well? Well, we didn't think you could get in over it. Okay, so you've got to start looking at that. Now, here's the point. I did a customer service, and I want to thank you for mentioning that this morning, the customer service webinar. I apologize. I should know your name. Joanne, thank you. I was going to say Joyce, and you was wrong. Thank you, Joanne. But on October 2nd, I did this webinar for about 600 people attended. And I'm going to show you the outcome, but I basically said, does your center have a customer service-based key performance indicator? Dr. Kathleen Cyber in East Texas State University did a lot of research. She's now retired. Years ago on our human service agencies, and she found only 5% of the human service agencies had performance standards for their staff around customer service. Only 8% actually actively had a training program for customer service. Instead of what we call a spot program. You know, once in a while we have somebody come in and talk about customer service. You know, spot, they had actually a training curriculum for it. Does your center evaluate each staff on their customer service capabilities and their individual annual performance evaluation? Or if I have key performance, do you actually evaluate it? I'll show you some examples. Does your center employ mystery shoppers? And what's a mystery shopper? What was that? Well, it's not really Let me give you an example. I became deputy director of the center in 1991 in North Carolina, coming out of another total business career for 25 years. I joined the staff because I've been on their board for a couple of years, and I became deputy director of program services. Now, what I was concerned about when I became deputy director is we had 284 people waiting for service. And the county commissioners told us that, and every time I could meet with them, you got to get people into care. So guess what I started doing? I started calling from my outside line into my inside. Now, why did I do that? So I could learn what we were saying. I could learn how it was happening from a customer standpoint. Does that make sense? My name is David, my name is Rick, that's my middle name. My name was Floyd, I adopted that. But I would say, my name is Floyd, I need to see a psychiatrist, call my adult department. See, the book on us was that we did a lot of benzodiazepines in our center. 82% of our adults were on benzodiazepines when I got there. We were a mellow group. Very mellow group. Our case managers were really advocating so people got calm. And so I called our adult department. I said, my name is Lloyd, I need to see a psychiatrist. And she said, in quote, don't worry, you'll get your pills. Okay. Now, is that the kind of image? The only way I can find that out is what? To go through the process. I can't sit here and say, how are we doing? Oh, everybody's fine. I need someone to tell me. So we formed a mystery visitor. We use school teachers. And we use school teachers and pay them hourly to do mystery visitors. We have examples, and I'll give you a customer service action plan to show you what they need to be checking on for you. But you really need to not get anyone into trouble. What you're trying to do is to be honest in your appraisal. Are we good with our customer service? Example. Another example. I went to, we work with a center in Kansas with the same-day access. About 8 months into it, they said it's not working. The management team, the clinical director particularly, it's not working. I said, what's not working? She said, people, our children, it's a child adolescent agency, our children don't want to come in now. The parents don't want to bring them in now. They want to book an appointment. Let me get this straight. Your child's in distress, and you're saying, I can see you today, and you're saying, oh no, I'd rather wait 3 or 4 days and come in with an appointment. And she said, oh yeah, that's what's happening. Everybody catch on that? I said, hold on a second, please. I got an emergency. I took my second phone line, and guess who I called? That center's front desk. And guess what I said? My child needs help. How can I get in? And she said, well, they've got this new thing. The front desk person said, they've got this new thing called same-day access, but most people don't like it because they have to wait a little bit. And she said, most people prefer to book an appointment. Can I book you an appointment? Did everybody catch on that? And so the script that was being used by the front desk person was driving it back to what? What it had been. Because all the staff were comfortable with schedules. Can everybody catch that? That's not customer service. And the only way you're going to learn is to, I wasn't annulled, I just said, I need help. You've got to start learning. And so do you have those? Do your center have an image building, marketing, public relations plan? And are you familiar with that plan? What's your role in that plan? Now here's what 600 people said to me, over 600, is that the center said, these were all behavioral health centers, is that does your center have a customer service-based key performance indicator? 63% said no. Does your center employ mystery shoppers? 82% said no. Okay. How does your center send referral source? Does your center, how often does it send referral source satisfactions? Never, 50%. So we never go out to referral sources. I'm going to give you a sample and say, how are we doing? And we want to know if we're doing well or not. So we won't ask you. Just will never ask you when you hope we're doing great. So are you with me? Now leaders who were here this morning, can you see how that's detrimental to where you're going? I need to understand what my referral sources are thinking about me. Quarterly, 14%, annually, 36%. How often does your center measure outcomes, client satisfaction? 6% never. Quarterly, 45%, annually, 49%. Most of that's state required. Okay? So what's wrong with this picture? What's the importance of customer service in this picture? What's that?
There isn't much showing importance. But these people have done,
Exactly, because I don't know. All I can do is work on anecdotal information. Well, I think it's going pretty well. Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Would you all agree right now, if you go back to the myths and stigma, that the VA's got a problem? What's it surrounding a lot of? Customer service. Core problem. And the core problem is they can't get people to treat. And that's what treat people need. So I took, Linda Rosenberg, who's present CEO of the National Council, a couple of years ago at a conference, she spoke about being the Northrams of behavioral health care. I don't know if you remember that, it was in a plenary session. So I took the concepts of Nordstrom on the left, because I'm a Nordstrom customer, and I took kind of where I see us on the right in the behavioral health industry. That's where the versus comes in. But the customer comes first. And in Nordstrom, the example, bought a suit, had a little problem with the suit, came back, not a problem, we'll give you another one. It's a problem for you, it's a problem for us, we'll replace it. What I see is that our payer requirements and our standards are often the top priority, not the customer. Does that make sense? If we're being medicated, we're doing what we need, the state says we have to do. It's not about serving the customer as much as that's our focus most days and most of our discussions. The problem with that, the customer becomes secondary. And that's what I see, again, perhaps is happening with the VA. We talked about a scheduling model, but the customer getting care became secondary to trying to make sure the numbers look good, evidently based on what we know today. Staff members tend to focus on meeting the service delivery system's needs, whereas in Norfolk, the customer finds excellent service. And what we tend to do is meeting what we have to do. For instance, I did a focus group with customers back when I was a board member in the early 90s at the center, and I said, are we meeting your needs? And this guy said, well, I just have one question for you. I said, what is that? I'm a new board member trying to learn from 25 of our clients. And he said, don't y'all own a copy machine? And I said, well, yeah, we have copy machines on there before. He said, well, why don't you ask me all these questions, make a copy, and pass it down? He said, because I'm answering the same question over and over. The other day, on customer service, one person said to me that this was a CEO who was doing a just-in-time access because all hands on deck, including the CEO. We got somebody waiting for him to get them in. And he said, this guy asked him, he said, are you the last person I'm going to speak to before I get into treatment? And he said, well, no. He said, well, can you just send me there so I don't have to answer the same questions? Can everybody hear that? Can you hear it? Because the point is, the customer-defined services, in our case, is our service delivery system, and what we need to do, or what we've decided needs to be done, and what our staff decides needs to be done. Everybody with me? What's best for the customer is best for the organization. Access to care is really based on the clinician's availability, not on when the client calls or walks in for help. Example, we had one team who said they were having a tremendous problem with no-shows for intakes. Okay, it's about 81% no-shows. I said, well, that's the highest I've ever seen. And I said, so when are you scheduling your intakes? And the answer is 8 to 10 o'clock on Monday mornings. And I said, why are you scheduling them then? What was the answer? The clinician wants to get them over with for the week so we can move on with other things. So who was priority? Who was priority? The customer, when they could come, when they needed help, after school if it's a child, versus 8 o'clock in the morning? Everybody with me? It was the clinician's priority. Have y'all ever gone around and begged for intake slots? Anybody? You know, so what do we beg for intake slots? I got people, I need another intake slot. Are y'all familiar with that? Managers? What's wrong with that? It's when we want to give them, not when the client might need it. See, and same-day modeling, you're going to start looking at when the client might need it. Managers are responsible for spreading a culture of service to the employees. Less than 5% of public funded human service agencies have customer service KPIs. I mentioned that a minute ago. Providers of customer service must pay attention to every detail of the customer experience, and CPHOs have a tendency to use silos of service in the treatment instead of horizontal. For instance, the average community behavioral health center we work with asks 450 to 750 redundant questions from the first call for routine help to treatment plan completion nationally. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your date of birth? What's your date of birth? What's your date of birth? Everybody got it? And what's wrong with it? Is it good customer service? Have you ever been to a primary care practice where you said, I already said that? Right. But yeah, no, but we have to do it again. Are y'all familiar with this? Sue wants to get this information in her desk, you know, wherever Sue is. Yes?
Well, and it's so inefficient. I mean, it's not only bad customer service, it's so inefficient for the organization, it costs us so much money.
Oh, it does. It does. In fact, Joy's going to show you exactly to the penny how much it's costing. And she's going to show you your data maps and show you exactly how many redundant questions you're asking. The average mental health center we work with, when we start with them, ask between 1,700 and 2,600 questions to get people to treatment. Okay? Average state requires 975. And somehow we've added to that because somebody wanted to ask that question. I think it's good information to know. But what does it, how can we get them from first call for help to treatment? That's where the payers wouldn't want it to go in value. We got to get them to treatment. We can't keep running through these hurdles and processes. Our team the other day had 3 groups, what we call earnest groups. In order to get into treatment, you had to attend 3 groups before they would do the intake assessment. And that proved that you were earnest about getting treatment. Is everyone with me? Can you catch all this? That's a culture that's not going to float our boat in the future. This is a training agenda. I'm going to go through most of this today with you. I don't have time. This is a one-day agenda, but I'm going to cover the high spots. Customer service starts at sea level. Sea level is where customer service is. Sea level means where we meet the client. And this morning, we met me at sea level. When I walked in that door, that's sea level. And it's not 10,000 feet above. And mystery visitors give you sea level advice, or give you sea level information. It's about when they call and ask for help, they're filling out a survey. You know, when they walked in and tried and presented as a client, they actually filled out a survey and told you exactly what was happening, how many times they signed their name. Those types of sea level experiences give you the data to say we're good or we're not good. Or we're doing well or we're not doing so well on customer service. And it can't be, and has anybody ever been in an intake, design, redesign meeting that sounds like this? Oh, we got a lot of problems. We got a lot of people answering questions multiple times. We got to back up. And when you start the 2-hour meeting, everybody, yeah, we got a problem. By the end of the 2 hours, it sounds like this. Well, we're probably doing the best we can. You know, Bill and Sue, they're working themselves to death. Are y'all familiar with this meeting? So why don't we get back together in a couple of weeks and we'll talk about it again. But if you're the customer, why not change it that day? Can you see the concept? And see, what we can't become is the system. And I'm afraid that we have. We're the system that was originally designed to serve the customer. But for whatever reason, we have started to serve the system and the system's needs more than the customer's needs. That's what we're seeing in data. That's what we're seeing in assessing intake to care processes. That's what we're seeing across this nation, is our system seems to be meeting its own needs, not necessarily the customer's needs. Particularly child and adolescents, because they typically have time needs. Would you agree, time-specific needs? Versus, say, an adult client. I mean, they really need to be after school. They need to be at certain times. So how do you meet those time needs? So, again, mystery visitors, all of that gets you to sea level. Our customers want certain proxy measures of quality, and we'll give you those. And we'll give you next some examples from other teams so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel of proxy measures and/or performance measures. Not to say they're the best ones or the only ones. I'm saying that these are centers who recognize they have challenges. They want convenience. That's, again, very important. Part of the challenge you're hearing on the VA is that they close their operating theaters at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're hearing all this. And that the doctor's out of there by 4. And what's wrong with that if you're sick? Works well if you're in a government, if you're in government hours, but it doesn't work well if you're sick. Does that make sense? So I've got to look at convenience. When can I see them and how should I see them? And be glad to put you in touch with the center. Joan Devazio is the director up at the Center Astor Behavioral in the Bronx. And I think you could actually see a lot of what they're doing to expand their days in convenience. A satisfactory experience. What's a satisfactory experience for a person who's looking for behavioral health services? What would you define today? What's that? What's wrong and how we're going to do it? How we're going to help? What have we identified as the assessed need and how we're going to do what we can do about it? Would you agree that if you went to your primary care doctor and you had an ailment of some kind of discomfort or pain, wouldn't that be what you want to know? What's wrong? What have you found out? What's your diagnosis? And what can we do about it? So that's what the experience is. Now, within that major overarching experience or sub-experiences, what does the lobby look like? What do the restrooms look like? We're going to talk about all those things because those are sub-experiences that are important. Accessibility critical. I cannot be a label. Excuse that double negative. Treated in a friendly, respectful manner. Achieve these, and you increase the likelihood of return, customer loyalty. And this is important. When I got to Cumberland County, we did not have a waiting room. We took an old hospital to the county and we redesigned it. So all of our staff had windowed old hospital rooms. Everybody in our staff had a windowed room. But we just used the hallways to put our clients in. We just put chairs up and down the hallway. They didn't have a room. So how did that work from a respectful dignity standpoint? Clients coming in and acting out, everybody just looking, hey, you're looking at them, everybody's just looking at everybody. Can you see what I'm saying? Is that respectful? So we took actually a medical records room and turned it into a waiting room. Oh, staff were upset. Why were they upset? Because they wanted medical records there. Well, we can put medical records over here, but we need a central place for the clients to sit. Make sense? And so we put in petitions, and we put in ceiling fans, and we put in artwork. And one of my staff said, "This looks like a doctor's office." And I said, "I hope so." That's how we designed it. And she said, "They'll destroy it." I said, "Well, let's try it. Let's just try to see if we give them something nice. And they will destroy it. You're catching, what's the focus there? The staff's focus. You know, we have a lot of lamps in waiting rooms across our nation. We just don't have any light bulbs in there. I'm serious. So I will go in and I'll say, "Here's $5. Why don't you don't have any light bulbs?" So I'm going in there for customer service survey. I turn the lights and I'm not burning. Well, they'll steal them if we put light bulbs in. And I say, "Here's $5. Why don't you go buy some light bulbs and we'll test this theory while I'm here." But what's the attitude about the client? What's the attitude? Disdain? Not respectful. They don't deserve it. Can't trust them. Everybody catch all that? There was a police department, and they basically talked about how being a policeman desensitized the person towards a person who had just been victimized by a crime. I'm saying that sometimes I think working in our industry for years, we become desensitized. Is that fair to say? And that basically they is us, them, and us and them. And it can't be us and them. It's about we. It's about we. Okay? Here's sample customer service performance indicators. I'm going to give you specific standards, so I'm not going to take the time to go through all of these, but I'll give you national standards for all of these later in my presentation. I just want to show you that this center, once we did an assessment, once we did mystery visitors with them, with the customer service action plan, we found that their telephone access was hard. Because everybody who answered the phone didn't have a script. What's a script? Everybody who answers one of your phones should know exactly, and Beech, Brook should tell them exactly what they need to say to inform the customer. Does that make sense? Because what I would do is call my center and they say, "Yeah, can I help you?" I don't want to get. I want to know this is the adult department, or this is the child department. Billy speaking, "May I help you?" What is your protocol? Is everybody with me? So we gave everybody scripts. The other thing we had on telephone access is we had a lot of people going into messages, leaving messages for the staff, and the staff weren't returning them. Are you all familiar with that? And that's called a customer service dumping rate. Okay? So we had telephone access problems. After and before hours telephone access. Under NCQA standards for health homes, healthcare homes, you must offer clinical coverage or capability to talk with the client throughout the day and after hours, not just for answering service. So as you start looking at health homes, you've got to look at how much time you have clinical capability. On hold, how long are you on hold? The answer is no more than 30 seconds before you re-empower the person. I can't leave you down the parking lot on a hot summer day on a payphone for 10 minutes while I'm trying to find somebody and not go back and say, "I'm sorry, I can't find them. Would you like to continue to hold, or can I take a message or forward it to the voicemail?" I have to re-empower them. And I'll give you that standard. Background and hold. If you call Ben Gordon Center, you're going to find a lot of good information, but it's also music. And it's comfortable music, so what? So you don't think your phone has been disconnected. But more importantly, it tells you what's happening next month. It tells you about mental health month, or it tells you about depression screenings or anxiety screenings, whatever it might be. But the number of people you talk to answer one question, what's your hours of operation? In one center, when I did a mystery visitor call from the hotel room, it took me 4 staff to get the hours of operation. 4 staff. What's wrong with that? So what's the attitude? What's the attitude about a staff? I want you to keep thinking, because I'm going to give you a rating scale in just a little bit, okay? Person, language skills, concerned, terminology. You know, as the director, the executive director of the state of Tennessee said to all the mental health centers, it was the most interesting day about 10 years ago. She went around and did 9 public hearings around the state. And she got up and she said, "I just learned one thing on this public hearing. These public hearings around the state of Tennessee is that most of our citizens speak English and y'all speak acromenology. And they don't understand it. And you need to speak English, because they can't understand you." Everybody with me? Okay. Personal greetings, intake process, customer service complaints, how are they managed, written information, out of service requests. These were some of the ones that they found in these 2 pages, 26, that these were challenges for them. And this categorical assessment or triage was the biggest one, where everybody just came through a chute and they never really looked at what did the person need, but they collected all this information. They were collecting tons of information on people, 30 minutes of the phone call before they learned that they needed food stamps. Is everybody listening? So why are we doing that? And this is another, KPI expectations. And this is, again, another center. Nothing good or bad about this. I'm just trying to give you what time frame do we get treatment plans completed? What is the tentative diagnosis? When is the second appointment within 8 days? The first medical appointment within 10 days? So they're defining what their benchmarks of customer service in their performance of their clinic every day or in their services and how that works. All appointments are confirmed within 48 hours. Appointments based on treatment plans, all through. In other words, they're saying in these 28 items, this is what we think is good customer service. How did they come up with these? Assessment of where they are now. And it just wasn't working. Does anybody see anything there that would be helpful? Any one of those? Can you catch them? And again, it could take all day to go through them all. I'm just saying that centers are doing this and coming to an understanding that these are our standards of customer service or care. And this is how we define the standards. Monthly updates of customer fees, active documented supervision with notes passed up the chain of command. Most of the centers that we see thriving, somebody asked me this morning, the question this morning was, are some centers making this change? Are we making this change? The centers where the CEOs require that all the chain of command pass up each week their supervision notes to him or her are thriving. Now why?
What is KPI?
KPI, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators, thank you for asking. Key performance indicators means in my job description, here's what I'm required to do. I'm required to open a chart within so many. I'm required to answer the phone within 2 rings. I'm required not to put people on hold for more than 30 seconds. The KPIs are define the role in more objective terms than you're going to be a front desk person. Can you catch the difference in I'm a front desk person versus here's what I expect you to do at the front desk? Or I'm a person who does fee assessments. Okay, here's what I expect you to do in fee assessments. So the KPIs give objective information which are then carried over to the job evaluation, performance evaluation. And what we see in most cases is we don't have the KPIs. We don't have an agreement on what is good customer service. So it's not in the job descriptions. Hence, we're not evaluating it well, and therefore customer service doesn't improve. Does that help? Thank you for asking that question. Great. Okay. Now, core customer service benchmarks. Core customer service benchmarks are reminder calls, backfill appointments to increase capability to serve, and that's called a will call list. Right now, the standard is that you backfill 90% of all canceled appointments with another appointment, so that your direct staff do not have a hole in their schedule. Does that make sense? So if I just allow the cancellation to occur and not backfill it, it becomes a no-show to your schedule. So how are we doing that? No-show cancel management. Right now, and I'll show you some outcome data this afternoon, but at Intercommunity, they went from 42% cancellation no-show by clients to 6% is their current level. But they offer therapy, same-day assessments, therapy, same-day, case management, same day. Doctors, 72 hours. So all of a sudden, you're engaging people instead of scheduling people. Does that make sense? And so the challenge is, how do we start looking at those, again, engagement models, internal customer service support? We all must adopt and embrace the customer service culture. And I'm going to give you an assessment on what you think yours is. All clinicians must look at their care delivery through the eyes of the payer and the client. It has to be both. And all managers must reinforce great customer service through their behavior and attitude. And I think this is real important, leaders, is that you have to exemplify good customer service. If you do, it's infectious with your staff. Okay?
Can you define backfill?
I'm sorry, we're talking?
Backfill.
Backfill, sure. Backfill means that we're going to call 48 hours in advance and say, Tanya, you have an appointment with your child on Thursday at 4. Is it still convenient for you to come Thursday at 4? Or would it be better if I rescheduled you? We found that question is very helpful, Tanya. And you say, well, you know, my mom's coming to town, I really can't, not a problem. I reschedule you, and the minute I hang up, Tanya, that centralized scheduler takes from, let's say, Deborah, her will call list. Will call means if I have a cancellation this week, call one of these clients to backfill because I need to see them. So I'm going to say, has anybody been on a will call list for a dentist or a doctor? We're full, but we'll call you for the cancellation. Same concept. So I pick up Deborah's will call list. I don't bother Deborah. Just say, you're on Deborah's will call list because she's already explained that to me. We give them a little card, in essence, a calling card size, your will call, what a will call means. And she's got an opening now 4 on Thursday. Can you come in? She'd like to see if you can. You can't, not a problem. You call the next one. Deborah's got an opening Thursday 4. Can't you? Okay, not a problem. So you backfill. If that does not occur, then Deborah has, at the end of Thursday, a no-show at 4 o'clock. Unless somebody just happens to walk in. Does that make sense? So what you're doing is you're using your clinical capacity to meet the needs of whom? Client customer. Okay? Being customer-centric results from adherence to a set of core values. And I want to give you some core values. It means that we're going to do this no matter what, no matter how pushed or no matter how busy we are, we will speak to our core values. And that we must be able to deliver services that are more customer-centric. Wait times. Example, one of the centers that we work with out west has lost 37% of their clients over the last 7-8 months. So they called and said, we don't know what's going on. And what happened is the state changed the rules. Before, if they had Medicaid service capability or benefits, they had to go to their local center. That was the old rule. But guess what they said? The MCO said, now you go to any provider you want to. So guess what happened? 26% of them left in 6 months. So I went out and I sat, and this is true too. I sat in the lobby with a coat and tie on, took the coat off after a while. I had a legal pad and I had a stopwatch, and I sat in their lobby for 7 hours. Guess how many staff came out to ask me if they could help me? Not one. What was I doing there? Not one. Okay? And it was unannounced visit. I didn't know they know I was coming. So I timed people with a stopwatch. When they walked up to the front desk, you know, here I am. I'm here. Guess how long the average person was waiting in the front desk for staff to recognize their existence? 1 minute and 42 seconds. What's the national standard? 10 seconds. You know what I did one night? I was checking into a hotel, I won't tell you which one. You know it was a Holiday Inn. But I was standing in the front desk, I traveled, I worked all day, flew that night, it was about 11:30 at night. I was tired, I had to get up at 6 the next morning, and the guy at the desk was talking to somebody about a wedding reception. I'm standing here trying to check in. Well, you could get a cake, and we could probably check on that, but you might want some flowers. And let me get you that florist number, and I'm going like this. And finally, I couldn't get his attention. After about 10 minutes, I just needed a bedroom. You know, I'm accustomed. So I took we have a travel sheet that Mary gives us, and I had the phone number of the hotel. So I took my cell phone and called the hotel. And he said, oh, I got another call. Hold on a minute. And he put it on hold. He said, Holiday Inn, may I help you? I said, yes, you can. I'm right in front of you. I need to check in. Is everybody with me? Is everyone with me? And see, the problem at that center is the staff were having this stuff. They were just talking. How was your weekend? Did you go to that picnic? And the customer is standing here. Is everybody with me? This is yes and this is no. I'm not going to change it. So what I need is, I need to look at wait times. I need to look at out-of-pocket expenses. And if we have the copay, am I collecting copays? How am I collecting copays? How am I empowering the staff who are collecting copays? Is it appropriate? Redundant paperwork, we're going to talk about, and you're going to see that in your assessment. Environment of your services provided and the value of why you would come here versus someplace else. Now, is this happening in other places? This is an article where the Betty Moore Foundation has committed $500 million towards a program that seeks to boost patient experiences in psychiatric hospitals. They think it's pretty important. They think it's real important. Here's a question. I want you to answer these questions. Are the staff primarily focused on serving the system or serving the individual presenting for care that the system was originally designed to serve? Where do you think you're focus is, primarily, overall. System focus. Multiple signatures, delays. This is the way we want to do it our time, not yours. Yes, okay? So that's important to understand. How is the internal staff to staff or program to program customer service working? For instance, the first day on the job as deputy director of this center in '91, I walked into medical records, and the medical records director was standing here, and two of her staff, medical records staff, were here. One was saying to the other, go tell Tom, Tom was an LCSW, adult therapist, go tell Tom to turn in his treatment plan for this client because I'm not speaking to Tom this week. He did a chart for me. He did a chart for me last week. I said, you got that chart? He said, no. And I snuck in there Thursday with a maintenance. He had it under his desk plate, hiding it from me all week. And I looked at Cynthia and I said, what are you going to do about that? And she said, about what? I said, I feel like I'm in the 3rd grade over here. I'm going to take my marbles and go home. I'm not speaking to you this week. And she said, what should I do? I said, I want you to give me a plan to get them to high school by Friday. But this behavior is not going to happen in this practice anymore. Does that make sense? We've got to grow up. We can't live like we're in 3rd grade and I'm not speaking to so-and-so. That kind of system noise, it comes back to where the clerical staff are feuding with the clinical, and the clinical are feuding with the administrative, and the administrative are feuding with the IT. Are y'all familiar with all this? And some days it boils out, just boils over. And other days it's kind of downhill. But all of that creates, and this is the challenge team, wherever I see internal customer service challenge, I see a center who cannot possibly focus on external customer service. That's what I've learned. Can't focus on it because all your time is spent with what's the biggest issue today. You have a question?
I was just going to say that I think for the first point, that the staff really want to be doing, serving the individuals that they are here to serve. I think that's really where their heads are. But we're in their head, rattling around in their telling them that they have to serve the system.
Very important point. Very good. What's your name? Melanie, you're right on target, because what I've got to do now is, with the managers, I've got to figure out why we're so system focused. And I understand compliance, I have to teach compliance. Got it. I understand all the things that we have to do, but if the system is not serving the client that was originally designed to serve, then I need to look at the system processes. And that's really what Joy is going to be doing with you, is to come into your system and talk to the very staff who do the process. We do not want any managers in the room. Now, why? Because we want them to tell us what they're actually doing instead of what the model is, or how. I just want to know what they're doing. All we're going to try to do is give you an assessment. And so my point is, if that's the case, then I've got to look at my leadership and say, where am I? Where am I? Yeah. Good point. What's your name?
Just to clarify, both the customer and the system needs have to be met. You just may have to adapt the system and how it gets its needs met to focus on the customer.
And
it's not either or.
It's not either or. Please stand. If you've never read stand up, because I had that in my earlier slide. It has to be the payer, the system, and underscored and the customer. But I've got to look at that penalty. How much do I have to do that's compliant requirement that I can't get away from? Can I do it differently or approach it differently? But also, how does this affect the customer and that customer service penalty? So I can't just go all customer service. No, we don't even take your name down anymore. Nor do we go the other extreme to here's what the system requires, and I'm sorry, we have to sign your name the 13th time. So I've got to look at the pendulum here and the balance of it. And that's why mystery visitors, that's why assessment is so critical for you to start seeing the reality. It's not good or bad. I hope y'all can jump on this. It's not good or bad, it's just reality.
Well, for clarity's sake, maybe the most dangerous system is your internal system. It's not the rules you're having to follow, more the client. It's your internal system, the things you're doing for your own.
Correct. 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 Are you, like, exactly. Everybody catch that comment? Because it's a powerful one. And I know in working with a lot of teams on the intake processes, what we learned is, what I learned back in the 90s is, I said, why are we using this? It said the yellow form, it was printed on blue paper. It was a child adolescent intake process. And I said, first question I have, I'm new here, I know I'm really new, but why do we call this the yellow form if it's on blue paper? The answer was, we ran out of yellow paper. So we had a lot of blue, so we printed on blue. I said, well, how many years of supply do we have? We had a couple of years supply of blue. So why don't we change it to the blue? Well, no, it's the yellow form. I got that. But why are we asking these 8 pages of questions? It seems redundant to the state-required intake, which we were given. And what was the answer? Judy wanted us to ask those questions. And I said, well, who's Judy? I haven't met Judy yet. Well, you wouldn't, because she retired 7 years ago. But we were still asking Judy's questions. That's what I think you're saying, is that we've got to get beyond the folklore and the anecdotal and say, what are the requirements? And look at that realistically and meet those requirements realistically. The level of internal system noise is really important. What we had in many centers, we have a support staff having an all-day staff meeting at the front desk. We had clinical staff in the lounge, and they were talking about each other. Are y'all familiar with this? Are you? I'm seeing some head shake. It's too sensitive. Roll your eyeballs. Okay? But it's real important because what I found when I walk up to the front desk, I'd hear support staff say, Dale, would you tell me if Dr. Jones says anything about me? I know he's out there getting me today. I got to run, but I'm going to come right back in. As soon as you get out of that meeting, she said, hey, Dale, did he say anything? Did he see him? I mean, it's like we were just reporting all day. And I'm thinking, who's got time to do this? We're not doing our jobs. Coming in from private industry, we terminated people for that. Does that make sense? Because we couldn't afford it. Just couldn't. Questions about that? Internal customer service challenges are relevant, then I found that consistent focus on external customer challenges is not possible. One of the things that Dr. Kathleen Marriott, the first mental health center that engaged me back in the 90s as a consultant, she called me, she said, David, my management team's bickering. And I said, Dr. Marriott, I don't understand bickering. Define it for me. She said, well, we all get in the meetings and we talk about change and everybody's fine, how are you? Well, fine. You know, we fine real well. We smile and fine. In fact, when we're born, we have to, we're spanked. If we don't say I'm fine, the doctor has to spank us again. It's a cultural thing. That was my take on it. But anyway, that's so good. I have to name it because it's pretty weak. But the point is, she said, you know, we set the meetings and we go down, we're going to change their access. Everybody's fine. And she said, now the meeting is over. And they walk out and say, Dale, did you hear what she said? Did you hear what Deborah? I'm not going to do what Deborah said. Are you going to do what Deborah said? And she said, they meet in the parking lot, in the bathrooms, in the hall, out and sit in the front cars and talk. And she said, they get back together. I'm fine. How do you do? She said, it's absolutely sickening. Anybody familiar with that? You know what private industry calls that? Rank insubordination and inciting crisis in an agency. That's what it's called. What we call it is collegial differences. Everybody with me? You need to start looking at what it is. Because in a time of change. But here's what I did. I gave every one of their managers a legal pad. I gave them 2 number 2 pencils, sharpened them. I thought it would be nice that way. And I handed Dale, here's your pad, here's your pencil. The only question I had up on the screen in those days, it was with an overhead projector, transparency. If you had complete control of your budget, would you purchase services from other management team members or from your other agency teams? And so Dale will say that you were providing IT services. So my job would be to say, Dale, you would come in front of me and I would basically say, Dale, I would not purchase IT services from you and here's why. I can't get my reports, it's inaccurate, or I would and here's why. I purchase these, but I wouldn't purchase those. Your job was to write it down. Not question me, not, I don't think you're right. No, just write it down. 30 days later, we had a half-day meeting, and you were to give me your action plan to improve my customer service. Now, guess what we learned that day? Guess how it started? Guess how the retreat started? It was so sweet. Oh, yes, Bill, I purchased surgery. He was just so sweet. I mean, it got sick of me. It just, it was like, ooh, and finally, about 10 o'clock, we took a break, and nothing but was wonderful. Yes, I purchased services. We dealt with about 5 people, because they had to go around to each person, and each person go around to each person. So I went to my car to print out another, I had a little portable Canon printer, battery operated, print out another transcription. I said, no, they got to get real. So we started back again after the break, and it was so sweet. Oh, yes, I would. And finally, one person was speaking. Another person said, well, I wouldn't purchase your services. And let's start right here. Why wouldn't you? And you know what they did? They got real. Do you know what we learned? is that there were some people upset over a German chocolate cake from 12 years before. You know how we knew that? Because every time they both walked in the room, they puffed up. They all three would puff up. They wouldn't look at each other and speak to each other. When somebody said yes, go left, this one would say go right. And it was over a stupid German chocolate cake. Can you catch my point? Is that if you're having internal problems, challenges, you need to resolve it. And what we had to do was bury the hatchet on the German chocolate cake. And guess what? My recommendation: you take another German chocolate cake and bring it to work, and this person will compliment you on their German chocolate cake, because that's what the whole issue was about. Is everybody with me? And you may think this is silly. It is not silly. It absolutely takes your energy. It takes away the consistent focus on the customer, because it's always there. Is this happening at Beech, Brook? Is it? Okay. And if it is, you don't have to get serious, because we don't need the noise anymore. We don't need the inability to pull together. Everybody on this team right now is needed more than ever before, and we've got to get past them and us. Okay, and I'm going to give you an assessment for that. I keep saying it, but I will. Here's the assessment. Now I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to give you this assessment. Then I'm going to give you some more information about it, and then I'm going to ask you to do the assessment again. Okay? So just think about it for a second. The first pass at this, I want you to focus as your staff system focused on external customer service focus. Okay, so we're looking at external. That's the client, family, colleagues. Okay? What we typically see is that we have three roles that staff typically play. The first role is, it's not my job. It's not my job description, I can't help it. You all familiar with it's not my job description? I really can't help because I checked my supervisor first, but I don't think she's going to let me. Anybody familiar with this? It's not about helping, it's not about looking at service, it's about my role and my job. It's not my job. Case study. The needs of the individual served are not in my job description. Where the individual served go, if they don't go here, that's an important one. If they don't come to Beech, Brook, where in the world are they going to go? Well, candidly, in the new environment, anywhere they want to go. Does that make sense? Individuals served are here because they have to be here, and that's misspelled. I apologize. Just realize that. It's H-E-R-E. And I went to a center. I drove for 4 hours one morning to meet with the director in North Carolina. I walked into the lobby at 10 o'clock. Building rates at 6. I need to go to the bathroom. So I walked in this lobby. Building looked pretty nice. Pretty new building, really. And I looked around. I didn't see any bathrooms. And so I walked over to the front desk and I said, because you're going to tell me which one it is, though. And I said, where are your restrooms? She said, oh, they're right over there. And I said, well, there's no sign. She said, there's a sign behind the ficus tree. Everybody with me? So I went over and pushed the ficus tree out. So people could see the restroom. I went in the restroom. It was filthy. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. It was not serviceable. I came back out and I said to her, the bathroom is not serviceable. It needs tissue and it needs cleaning up. Is there any way we can get any help? And she said, our cleaning crew will be here at 5:30 and take care of it. 10 o'clock on Tuesday night. See, it's not my job. And I said to her, do you have any toilet paper in this building? She said, yes, but it's locked up. I said, if you can get a key, we'll solve this in 30 seconds. You see, customer service is everybody's job. Customer service is everybody's job, whether you're the CEO or whether you're the maintenance director. It's everybody's job. You never stop, you never can stop. Does that make sense? Client focus. Individuals are not empowered. Individuals usually don't know what they need. We know better than you know. Individuals have little bit of choice. Individuals are here to receive treatment. They need us. They need us. And that's where we typically see the clinical approach in the old school, is they need us. Where are they going to go? I mean, we need to tell them what to do. It's not about them. It's not about empowerment. It's they need us. And the last focus is where I really want you to start thinking is we need them. We need them. You know, when I went to this center, I told the child director I was going to Raleigh and came back the next day. And here's what I did, because the child program was very, very overwhelmed. And I did it for a reason. They were just totally overwhelmed. What the staff talked about more than anything else is how exhausted they were. in meetings, in the halls, oh, I don't know what, are you gonna make it through the afternoon? I mean, it's like we were just helping people live through the afternoon, you know. I'm thinking, my gosh, there's no empowerment here. Everybody's a victim. You follow me? I didn't see any empowerment here, which I had come, you know, from another industry. And so I went to Raleigh, came back, and so they asked me to come to child meeting. I did. And they said, what'd you find out? I said, guess what? You know, the child has cut $183,000 in our state budget this year, but I've arranged to have 452 new referrals coming in, and that's going to replace all that money plus $30,000. Isn't that wonderful? It was the worst news they could have heard. You see, if clients coming into care is bad news, then our system is overwhelming our staff. Does that make sense? They're either not doing their paperwork, they're constantly behind, whatever it is, they're overwhelmed. And we've got to, as leaders and coaches and mentors, address that. So it could be okay news that we're getting the referrals in. That's what we do. We actually get people into care. Now, I'm going into a lobby. You tell me which one it is. I go into a lobby of a center that's failed in Texas, and we went in to clean it out. I was hired to come in and do that. The other center took them over. The only periodical in the lobby was a 1964 Texas Atlas. What's the focus? By the way, it was worn. It was worn out. Did not have one interstate highway in it, but it was worn out. What's the focus? 1, 2, or 3. What? 1 or 2. They needed us. They don't need anything to read. Or we go into lobbies and they have half the magazine cover missing because they had a label from home and we torn half of it off, and it's 3 months old or 6 months old, but it's in the lobby. Y'all familiar with it? So what's the focus? We have chairs that have, you know, bad spots on them. They're sticky, just sticky. What's the focus? Can you hear the concept? Now, I'm going to take you away from external customer service. Let's go internal. Internal. What's your focus? There's 3 numbers. What's your primary focus? If I go to clerical support, if I go from clerical support to clinical, if I go from clinical to IT, if I go to administrative to finance, what's the typical focus of the staff I have to work with? It's not my job, or they need us. Or we need you. Do I understand the question? You don't? Question then, Tanya, is in the day in and day out, as you work internally within Beech Brook, when you go to other units or programs, not your own, do you find them giving you responses such as, it's not my job, I can't help you because I've checked with my supervisor, or basically you need us. If you didn't have IT, you couldn't make it here. Or if you didn't have clinical, you would make a dime, and administration wouldn't have a dime to spend. Can you keep it? We need us, they need them. They need us, and then we need them as we're all in this together. We need everybody here to work together. Does that help?
Yes.
So where are we all? 1, 2, and 3. On most days. What's that?
It's very
Variable? Okay. Give me some ranges.
1, 2,
1 or 2? Okay. All right. Some 3s? Okay. Now, why is it important to get all of you to 3 every day, every minute of every day? What's coming down the pipe? The biggest change we've ever had in healthcare probably in generations. It's going to need every one. We pull together. Every single one. Make sense? Not pull against, not working against. Now, let's go forward. Key performance measures, back to your question in the back, the KPIs are key performance measures. And so basically what you do is, these are some of the continuums you need to build key performance measures. I need the performance measures here for support staff, for customer service, as well as direct staff and admin staff. But I then need to put them in job descriptions. We have job description samples we've had to share with you. If you'd like to see what customer service job description KPIs are. Objective evaluations. I will show you one in just a minute where you can actually rate people on their customer service. Now, the only way you can find that their customer service is not good or not so good or is very good is just to visit, to be honest with them and be fair with them, because you're going to have people come in and basically evaluate all of your staff as to which ones are meeting the needs of the customer and which ones are which programs. Formal supervision we talked about this morning, but again, the formal supervision is that you're coaching people and mentoring people around customer service and other issues, but you're actually identifying the customer service standards and helping them. What I started to do at Cumberland is I would have some of my managers come in, and I would have my manager come in and be the Mr. District. I'd say, I want to put this on speaker, I want you to call this center, your center, and tell me what you're hearing. Well, I don't want to do that, I'll upset them. Well, maybe you're not upsetting them, just find out what they're saying. Can you see the concept? This is not about being critical, it's about being what? Honest. Real. It's just real. I mean, it's just either it's working or it's not working. Now, it's not about firing people, it's not about getting people into trouble, it's about understanding we got work to do here. Does that make sense? We got some improvement we can make. CQI. Supervision plans, we have those settings for you, or those samples for you. I mentioned performance with full disclosure and accountability with positive and negative consequences. If we had good customer service, we gave them a gold star. We also obtained through our auxiliary, we have a mental health auxiliary, 501c3 nonprofit. We got weekends at the beach. We were about 2 hours from the beach. We got dinners at restaurants. We got those donated to us, and that's what our staff started to get. Thank you so much. Your customer service is excellent. We started to recognize the stars because we wanted them to show the behavior and example of customer service. It became important to all of us. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, here's an example of a standard. You know, the standard, the name of the standard, the definition of the standard, the source of information to measure the standard, the compliance rating of the standard, and a solution plan if the standard not being met. Just an example. We have thousands of these. Be glad to give you samples. Here's a supervision agenda. And what you're looking at here is a typical supervision is general administrative housekeeping. Your performance indicators, number 2, strengths and growth observed and growth opportunities would be your customer service standards. You know, are we meeting what we need to do? Are we meeting the needs of the customer client? And if not, what are we going to do about it? Okay? Also, supervision sessions evaluating projected performance levels, observed behavior. Customer service probably is more focused on behavior and attitude than performance. Let me unpack that a minute. Your behavior this morning and your attitude won me. Does that make sense? The smile, the greeting, that performance, that behavior was more than, I don't know what you were supposed to be performing. That's not me. All I know is I walked in. Our behavior and our attitude towards the client is critical as the 2 main ingredients of customer service. There was a smile, tremendously important. A greeting, tremendously important. Responsiveness is tremendously important. I'll give you some of the attitude requirements and the behavioral requirements. The aptitude is the ability to learn and change. A lot of our staff, when you start looking at customer service in a new kind of environment that we're looking at, you're going to have to kind of change how we've been doing things. You know, we're going to have to really start looking at, is this really working for us? And if not, can we learn a different way to do it? Can we change that process? Can we come up with an internal way that's not quite so burdensome? That's aptitude, ability to learn and change. And then we can do this attitude. The attitude is critical because as you look at this, and I'm going to give you here an example of a staff evaluation. These evaluations are done quarterly. Now, why quarterly instead of annually? Exactly. Annually, it's just a summary, kind of what happened last year. Quarterly is I can see there's a concern, and I can address it, and I can coach it, and I can mentor around it, and change the performance, behavior, aptitude, or attitude. But when you come over here around customer client satisfaction and employee satisfaction around the standards are here, the compliance rating is here, but you really start looking at how are we measuring those areas, and are we asking staff to really pay attention to those? And the only way we have found to get staff to pay attention is to send their job description into their evaluation. And for managers, we use that information to coach them on a quarterly basis in this case. Now, the 4 areas of customer service, as I said, are performance, behavior, aptitude, and attitude. And what I want to give you are some of those. The performance requirements is willingness to make timely decisions. Customer service is a timely decision-making exercise. I can't say, let me call you back in 2 weeks when I check with somebody and I'll give you the, that's not customer service. Make sense? So I need empowerment in that position. I need someone at that who's answering the phone, who's answering at the front desk, if that's your contact, I need them to be empowered with the authority, with the responsibility that equal each other. If I've given them the responsibility to collect co-pays, then I need to give them the authority to decide if the person can't pay at all, what am I going to do? I don't need for them to say, hold on, let me go check with my supervisor. I need for them to be empowered. Does that make sense? To make a timely decision. So timely decision is critical. Willingness to stay with those decisions until the final outcomes are achieved. It's important because if I said to the customer client, we can do it this way, and then I'll say, well, no, I think we can do it. All I'm doing is confusing. So if I made a mistake, let me admit it, but let me not just continue to change my tune with the customer because it gets very confusing, particularly if they're comparing notes out there in the communities. Willingness to change based on evaluation of outcomes. Customer service, and I think you said it, is honest. When I do mystery Mister, when I look at assessments, it's an honest approach. Is it working or not? If it's not, then I need to evaluate why and change it. That's simple. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. It's just based on customer service. And when you all have client focus groups, parent, family focus groups. And just ask them questions. And if they say, how's this working? How's the intake process working? Listen to the evaluation points. It's not to say it's all perfectly, you're getting all the feedback, but I need you to listen to things like the owner company sheet. That was my first book. That got my attention. The first thing is, yeah, we do, but we're not using it. Never ending communication. Performance in customer service can never get finished telling the customer what they need to know. It's like with a child, almost. Constantly saying. Yesterday I was waiting in line to catch my flight, and this father and son were there talking, and he was asking all kinds of questions about the pilot and the wings and all kinds of things about it. And his father kept repeating it. And he'd say, but I don't know. And he kept repeating. Customer service is repetition. You never can get tired. Is that fair to say, gentlemen? You get the same questions every day?
Several.
Pretty well know when they start, what the end of the question is going to be?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just communication. It's repetitive, but I got to do it with a smile. See, the smile on the phone, if I'm on the phone or if I'm in person, somebody who smiles. The people we want doing centralized schedule management, same-day access management, and triage are people who smile when they talk on the phone. And why? Because you sound pleasant. The voice quality, the way you, so it's a skill. It's a skill set. But accuracy is important. Ability to use objective information and knowledge of outcomes. We've tried this, it didn't work, and we tried this, and it's working, so let's move in that direction. Now, behaviors. Fully involved and supportive of customer service needs. That's real important. And managers, I need to say this, there can never be a time when you go back to number 2 or number 1 with your staff. Well, we didn't help them, who else would help them? I mean, never go back there. We need them, and how do we get them in? You've got to change your language, the us language. One team, what's her name, Sally, homemaker, Sally created a hat for a team in Georgia I worked with in the late 90s, and it was a hat that had me, and it was in red, and she did all that little craft stuff, and then it had us, or we. It was in blue. And she put them in the middle of the table, and every time they start having a management team meeting, and somebody said, my program, my team, my segment, they have to put on the red hat. And she said, what we really want to talk about is us. We. What is this team going to do? How are we going to help people? Because we all have to work together. So if you want to put on the blue hat, fine, but just label yourself as me. Me, mine. Because we're different. I'm you, my program, but you've got to start changing that language to more inclusive elements. If that's a challenge. Timely decision makers with good behavior, responsive to work requirements, timeliness to work, meet deadlines. I can't do good customer service if I don't have a person on the front desk or I don't have a person showing up. Or if I got somebody in the lobby waiting and I can't get the clinician to see them after 10 minutes, and what am I going to do? I've got to re-empower that person to either leave and come back, but I can't just have them sit there. Everybody with me? Customer service. Good time manager, already setting capable. In time management, part of what I discussed this morning with you as a behavior is is that ability to start looking at some of the overwhelming things we do every day, like emails, and start paring that job function down. For instance, as I said, y'all ever sign an email and get one back that says thank you? Then I've got a certificate, be glad to give it to you. It's good for 1,000 thank yous in advance. And so, Deborah, instead of saying, I'm going to say, Deborah, in the future, when you send me something, I'm just going to say thank you. Now, if you say, did you get this? It was important that, I got it. That's another thing. But if I just don't go back and say thank you, that's one more Deborah's got to open, particularly when it's been sent to 22 people. So I'm going to send you 1,000 thank yous in advance. Everybody, so start thinking about those internal processes and how can you get more time management and priority setting. Appropriate boundaries with staff and clients. One of the things that, again, I would really encourage you, I know for our front desk staff, we did de-escalation training with them. Not only for our case management staff, but our front desk staff. Know why? Why do we do that? They were with clients too. But we found that there was a level of anxiety. That if somebody gets upset, what are we going to do? So then we started seeing desks and windows and bulletproof glass. I mean, I will not believe what I've seen nationally. Little 8-inch holes drilled in it. I mean, it's unbelievable what we've done to create barriers because of the anxiety of staff. And so how do we overcome that in terms of customer service? Appropriate boundaries also is that, I was doing a survey with one team, and the front desk staff was talking to the client about how she should leave her husband. I wouldn't say that. Is that appropriate? Now, who might talk to them about their spouse or their marriage? There it is. Make sense? But not as a rule. In other words, we're not trained for that. So what is my role? What is my specific role? And what is your specific role? Back to role identification. Solution focused in every situation. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Yeah, we can do something. What are we going to do? And then low prices. And this is important. That's why we did de-escalation training. But we have a lot of our staff, as I said earlier, are in more crisis some days than our clients. Anybody familiar with that? And we had to look at that behavior and say that behavior is not helping here, it's actually harming. Because as you kind of decompensate and get into crisis, all the staff around you start to take care of you instead of the client who needs help. Does that make sense? So we had to start coaching behavior. How do you change behaviors, by the way? Coaches, how do you change them? At the moment they happen. Please don't wait a week to try to recreate it. And you don't do it in front of anyone. It says, Dale, when you finish talking with Deborah, can I see you, man? I just need to talk with you. And when we get together, my coaching around leadership essential training is, Dale, the behavior you just happened and what you just said is no longer acceptable in our practice. And I need to give you a few minutes to think about it. But tell me how you're going to change that from this point forward. And I'm through talking. It's your behavior. Does that make sense? But I got to do it in a timely way. I can't wait a week. You remember last week when you were talking to Deborah and she said, well, I wasn't even there. I was, and I have to recreate something. I can't do it. I lose every time. Make sense, Tim? Now, ability to learn, aptitude, ability to learn and change, knowledge of skills required in the workplace, let go of my ego. Customer service is about letting go of your ego. Who's right and who's wrong? You know what I learned? That within the management model, which I was trained again in Providential and took it in behavioral health, if I ask someone for something, we have a 2 rule. If I understand what a 2 rule, how many times you verbally instruct staff before you put it in writing? For something, I need something, and you put it in writing. So we have a 2 rule. And I asked the other day at a team, I said, how many times you verbally instruct staff and talk to staff about what's something you need before you put it in writing? And the lady in the audience said, 24 years. Kind of interesting comment. But the point I make is this, is that if I say, Dale, I need this, you probably want to move after lunch, so I'll call you. But Dale, I need to ask you, I need this report by Friday, I need to send it to the state over in Columbus. Can you get this for me? Okay? And I go in Friday and say, Dale, did you get this? Well, I called you in next Tuesday, or next Friday. I always accept the blame. I could, I was busy, but I found that if I say, I'm sorry, I probably did say next Friday, but I do need it today. If I take that approach, I'll get that report 10 times faster than if I say, no, now we were standing at the elevator, and you said, and I said, and I told him, I will not get that report. Same thing with customer service. I have to let go of my need to be right all if I'm going to be a good customer service representative. Because I have to be willing to shut up and listen. And when I'm trying to be right, that's what I'm usually doing. Talking. Does that make sense? I'm usually talking. So I have to let go of my need to prove them wrong. And so I can listen to what a solution might be. And it may not be the solution we even know about right now. But I've got to listen and come to some settlement of customer service that says this is the best way we can do it, maybe this is the best we can do it. But I need to let go of that ego. Willing to learn, willing to change. Now, positive attitude, and I'm going to show you these, but I've got another whole list for you, just a little bit more detail. But positive, we can do this. Respectful of others, cooperative, creative, flexible, responsive, responsible to match authority, and that's important. Adaptive to change environment, adaptive, responsive to needs, a team player, professional, solution focused. We can do this, but particularly a respect factor. A respect factor. And that looks like more of this. This is kind of that list that I expanded a little bit for you. But I know that part of what we did in our training is we wanted to talk about respect. We also want to talk about eye-to-eye contact. And why is that important?
So that you're listening to it.
What's that?
So that you are listening and that you care.
That we're listening and that we care. And that we're hearing. Yeah. As opposed to looking above their head, looking to the left or right of their head, or looking down. Because again, what people typically do in that scenario is they start to try to figure out what you're looking at. They're not listening to you. And so what I need to do is have eye-to-eye contact. And we used to rehearse that in private industry because our customer service staff at the front counter had to have good eye-to-eye contact. Candidly, and we looked at that in interviews. If they didn't give us eye-to-eye contact in interviews, we really had to look at that as possibly negative. Because if they were looking down all the time, or looking up, or looking sideways, I really need for them to engage. Okay? So positive, we can do this. Respectful, responsive, I've given you most of those. Low crisis levels, it's almost as if you've got to just stay cool. No matter how angry they get, just have to stay cool. Have you ever been in a restaurant where somebody's the customer's really agitated, and the manager comes over and just tries to, have you ever been there? That's what customer service is about. Particularly when you're dealing with the illness involved, behavioral health need that might have some outlier behavior. Willingness to be cross-trained, and that's important. I can't just do the job I've always done. I went to one center, and this is what they had for checkout. They had a glass assembly. It was an old Sears building. They had a glass counter, glass across the front, not a glass counter, but counter. Glass across the front, and they put little 1/8-inch holes drilled in, so you could talk like this because you couldn't hear otherwise. And then they had, on the sign up here, was check in, scheduling, copay, and check out. And they had little lines, so they had little barriers, so you had to get in line. Well, if you look behind the counter, you could walk up and down to any window. But they only had one staff per function. Everybody with me? So if you wanted to check in, you had to see Sue. Well, Sue's on break. Well, she'll be back. Can't you hear in the feline, oh, no, we don't, Sue would get upset. I mean, that's exactly what they were doing. And I was watching it. And so I'd say, well, what about oh, Bertha. And Bertha's a big popular name, but Bertha is big. Oh, she gets real upset if anybody touches her feet. Now, what's wrong with that? We had people standing in line in one queue, and we had 3 staff with no one in front of them, and nobody was willing to help because it wasn't my job. Number one, it's not my job. So what's better for customer service? Train them all. You all can do fees, you can all do checkouts, you can all do check-ins, you can all reschedule, you can do all of that. That's willingness to cross-train you customer service and professional approach to dress and appearance. Real important. Where do you think you are with this? With any of these? Give me some feedback. Attitude. Think you're pretty responsive, pretty flexible?
As a whole, or are you asking this as a whole?
Yeah. What's the Beech Brook experience?
I think very positive.
Okay. Others?
I would agree. We get a lot of feedback from the county workers and, other agencies we work
This morning we heard that there was a challenge with access with referral sources. So that's not really positive customer service, is it? Yes, please.
From an internal perspective, I think oftentimes we get caught into a very territorial approach where this is my job, this is my responsibility, and sometimes then that clashes internally. So you have the mix with the internal system and then working with the high level of traumatized folks that we do have, we're kind of coming from that approach, and then internally they have conflicts. This is not my job, or this is my job, and then it's feeding back to the clients. So, I mean, I'm a clinician, so I'm coming from a different perspective, but I often find that, you as an individual have to really check yourself while working with that person, so that you're not taking on the issues of the system and indirectly putting that back on the client.
Very good. Very important to do that. Anybody else agree with that? That's important, because you're talking about an internal perspective. But I think particularly what you said was so powerful is I'm taking from the issues of the system and kind of putting it back onto the client family, indirectly or directly. And that's the concern about customer service, is that, we have to deal, it's both internal and external, as I've said from the beginning. If I have the internal issues, I've got to solve those before I can really sometimes solve the external to the fullest extent. Other comments? Okay. And let's go here. The focus of customer service is attitude. This is SPARK. It's the primary issue. In fact, for customer service, we would hire for attitude and train for skills. But I wouldn't hire for skills if they didn't have the attitude. Okay, everybody with me? And what I would find out is that one of my questions, and have y'all ever hired Jekyll and Hyde? And what I've learned about Jekyll and Hyde, this is in the leadership training, is it's we're asking the wrong questions. And so it's about performance, behavior, aptitude, and attitude. But one of the questions I've always asked in the attitude section of my interview was, tell me how your weekend was. Oh, you won't believe what happened this weekend. It rained us out, we went for a picnic, we got all that. How was your trip over this morning? Oh, you won't believe this guy ran the red light and I thought I was going to die. I can't retrain that. Everybody with me? I can't retrain that.
Ask my managers to ask and solve at the end of the interview, if you met this person at the party after 5 minutes, would your eyes be dark around for somebody else that you used to get away from? Or would you be engaged in real life?
He doesn't say party, he says law.
He says, I love it. But you're right. I mean, it's really about attitude. Am I engaging? Am I looking? Am I interested? Am I likable? Yeah. Because again, all the skills in the world, candidly, if we have an attitude issue, it's tough in customer service. It's tough internally. It's tough on that internal customer service piece that we were talking about. It's tough on the internal procedures because it's not about being flexible. It's about my way or that kind of inflexibility. So I think that's the spark that I wanted to put here. The ego-deflating aptitude is the second one. I put them in rank order. And behaviors, I think, is also the spark. If I can let go of my ego, my behaviors usually change. I don't try to stand my ground and prove that I'm right. And you're talking to a licensed clinician. And then performance is a way for us to individually and collectively take the lead. Here's what we decided we'll do to be customer service. Okay. Now, I want to give you 4 elements of customer service. I'm going to go through these and just review with some national standards. But a place of business conducting personal business at work. One of the things that we find a lot in human service agencies is we have a fairly vague focus on that sometimes. And we have a lot going on that is not within the need of the customer. And we have a lot of activity going on that's not within the need of the customer. So the question is how much of that, and the key work ethic is where's your primary focus of energy, taking care of the personal business and taking care of the customer. And that's important. When I walk up to the counter, and even though we might be having a wonderful discussion, Dale, about the fact that you bowled almost $290 last night, that should come secondary to the fact that a customer has walked up. And it needs to stop immediately. It's not about discourteous to your staff. Your courtesy focus is offered first to the customer client. Does that make sense? That's your primary focus. It's not your secondary. So your key word is your primary focus. At the end of the day, you feel good about your work related to the needs of the customers. And what we used to do is really talk about that. We'd have all of our staff team come together for just a debrief for about 10, 15 minutes. You know, what happened today? We had someone come in upset. How did we manage it? Could we have done it differently? We problem solved while it was current. What we could have done differently as behavior, as an attitude, as an actual performance. Do we need to change this? But we wanted to really keep focused on what? The customer service aspect, particularly if it had been a challenging day. Waiting area, clean and orderly, no clutter. One of the things, again, that I found in a lot of centers is clutter. A lot of paper, a lot of stacks of paper, boxes with stacks of paper, file cabinets that are full, desks and credentials with stacks of paper, etc. And when I got to Cumberland County, all of my clinical program managers, you couldn't really see them unless you stood right in front of their desk plate. They had so much paper stacked in their desk. Everybody with me? And so guess what they were saying to the clinicians? Get your paperwork in on time. Any oxymoronic concept there at all? They couldn't clean out their desk. They were going against yours. So we had a clutter cleaning exercise. And we took clutter out. And we cleaned our desks, we cleaned our reception areas, we cleaned everything about our offices. We made them professional and clean. Current magazines with full covers, I mentioned that. Light bulbs in the lamps. Comfortable chairs, particularly, go sit in them yourselves. If you really struggle in the chair because it's got a spring in it, just go try it. You know, go try it. Privacy needs, again, if you feel your waiting rooms are too public, you need some ability for families or to take children, adolescents into a kind of a petition area so that they could have some privacy. Be aware of it. Just be aware of the privacy needs. And I call it the dignity needs. And the children and adolescent needs, of course, that's what your main focus is. But in centers, you have both adult and child. Signage needs. I have 3 questions. I want to compliment you on your signs coming in today. They're excellent coming into the facility and from the road. No problem at all. What I usually have, though, for front desk is a person asks the same question, or different clients ask the same question 3 times in a day, I'm going to put up a sign. Where's your restroom? Where's your restroom? Where's your restroom? Then I'm going to put up a nice sign, not a little printed off on a laser printer sign. I'm going to put up a nice sign and say, here's the restroom. Professional thematic signage, you do have thematic logos in color schemes that you've done that. A lot of teams don't. Eye-to-eye contact. And I just mentioned that, but I think it's important. If you need to rehearse that, and that's what we used to do with our front desk people, is we rehearse face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact. And we really wanted them to understand how to do that and not have to refer to notes. In other words, if a question was asked, we'd ask them to look eye-to-eye and give the answer instead of saying, well, let me check this out and start talking while they're looking in a file cabinet somewhere. I've lost the contact. Okay? The value of a smile, absolutely important. Acknowledging client's arrival, the standard is no more than 10 seconds at the front desk. Staff meetings at the reception desk model. I need to stop my staff from meeting at the front desk. Does that make sense? Because inevitably things are mentioned perhaps that should not be mentioned in front of clients, particularly around other staff or other issues. That's really not their job to do that. Answering the phone. National standards answer the phone by the second reading. Okay. That means if you have a pool answering where, you know, Dale's going to answer it, and you're going to answer it, Deborah, and then you're going to answer it, and I'm going to answer it, then we all sit there and look at each other and see who's going to pick up the phone. You know, you need to have some protocol that says it's either a rotation, but you look at each other. Well, why don't you get it? Yeah, I got the last one. In the meantime, the phone's ringing. So, second reading. Do not leave the person on hold more than 30 seconds and read the card. I'm sorry, I cannot reach the party you wanted. Would you like to continue to hold? Can I take a message or leave a voicemail? But I'm not going to continue to just hang them on the phone. Have standard script for all persons who answer the phone. That's very, very important in the sense that I need to be able to show that the person who's calling, in fact, can get into that center that they're trying to call. Another thing, I didn't look at this last night, I should have, in your phone book, your yellow pages, or even on your website. How many different phone numbers do you have for Beech Brook? Everybody understand that? Anybody have an answer for that? 2, 3?
I would say Lorraine, and then Lorraine number, the acronym number, but our general one is really the one they show on the phone.
So, okay. So you don't have like for this program or that program? One center I went to recently, I looked in the phone, we have 38 phone numbers in programs. impossible for a customer to figure out what the sunshine program is unless you really know. But sometimes the names that they use are confusing to customers. The other thing, so the standard scripts is how we answer the phone. Do y'all have standard scripts that you use? No matter who answers the phone, you answer the same?
We generally say Beech for good morning or Beech for good afternoon. Well, obviously Beech first.
Okay.
To them, you call the right place immediately.
Is that a need to come up with scripts? I don't know. Can we?
I'm not talking about just the general people answering their own phone, like my phone rings. You're talking about external calls in the organization.
External calls in the organization are calls that are forwarded to you. Okay? So if it comes through the front and they forward it to you, then what's your standard script of answer? And again, maybe something that's simple. You know, it could be David speaking, may I help you, or David speaking, and child outpatient, may I help you, may identify where they've reached in case they've reached the wrong place is what we try to be aware of. But again, just think through this, and how do you know? It's just call your center and see how it's answered in different places. That's back in the mystery district. The other thing is voicemail protocol. When I got to Cumberland, we had a real front desk issue. Sandy was delightful. She was a wonderful front desk. We had no PBX from World War II. We had a ton of trunk lines. But we had a real challenge because people kept complaining that they couldn't get through on their phone system and or they got through and they couldn't get a response. So I went up and worked with Sandy a couple of days and tried to understand what her challenges were. And what I heard was she would say, the center, we call ourselves the center. The center, hold please, the center, hold please, and she put people on hold. And so again, I guess the person would just hold, or they drop, many times they drop off and call back in. And I'd say, Sandy, why are you doing that? She said, because I don't have to, because none of the staff are picking up their calls, and so I'm having to send them to voicemail. And I said, well, is that working? She said, no, I've had to relegate myself to pink pads, the old pads we had before voicemail. You know, where somebody calls and you leave a pink note. And I said, why are you writing hand notes? And she said, because the voicemails are full. So I went to my office, and let me reintroduce myself. My name is David. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I went to my office on August the 7th, 1991, and I called 378 voicemail system numbers from my direct care staff. Guess what I learned on August the 7th? Took me almost all night. Guess what messages I heard on August the 7th? Happy New Year! Not here today, but I'll be back. That changed the message since January. What percentage of the voicemail systems were filled? We had 25 to 30 message capacity per line based on the length. 62% of my staff's voice message systems were filled. So what's wrong with it? Is that customer service? Is that a challenge? People not calling back? Everybody with me? So look at that. It can't be a customer service dumping ground. That's what we used our voicemail system for, is to get the staff off the hook to have to take a call. The problem is they were never calling back. So guess what we did, Joanne? You probably would love this. Is I empowered Sandy that if a person called and said, in the voicemail, and she's like, I need to speak to so-and-so, she would say, have you called in the last 24 hours? Yes. Did they call you back? No. And then she would try to ring them, and if not, she would forward them to the supervisor of that staff.
So I do a lot of that, therefore, or I email a message.
Why? Because I need the supervisor to start understanding that these people, that the staff aren't calling back. That's the biggest dumping ground I've ever seen. And really pay attention to that. And the only way sometimes you can do that is to make those calls. That night I learned a lot about our system and our customer service. Yes?
Yeah, the organization I was with before Beech, we were told that we had to return all messages, all phone messages within 24 hours, whether it was internal or external. Even if the message was, I got your message and I don't have the information for you yet, but I will be looking into it. Just so that people know that they're being heard and they're not being ignored.
Totally. That's called customer service, internal and external. Yeah, but I think sometimes we overlook this, and that's why I want to put it here, because it's so critical. It is absolutely so critical, because we changed our organization by changing the protocol. We really did. And staff were asked before lunch to spend so much time to make calls, and at 4 o'clock, start making calls, so that they could finish up with the voice message systems empty. 5 cents, in the private industry, we used to 5 cents. And I'm going to 5 cents the Embassy Suites Hotel for you, okay? I was just there last night. What is 5 cents? 5 cents means I want you to start thinking about what does the premises look like. Was the parking lot clean? The building painted and in good shape? The doors, can I get through the front door because of the salt used in the winter? It's stuck, it's rusted. So what does it look like? Are the signs adequate signs? So you start looking at what does it look like? And that's a customer service experience. Okay? Secondly, what does it smell like? You know, sometimes bathrooms are the most important customer service indicator in the world. Have you ever not gone back to a business because of bathrooms? You know, you thought something like that. The bathrooms are this messy. What does the kitchen look like? You know, okay. Same thing. And that's the highest level of customer service complaint we see nationally in private enterprise is bathrooms. So it's always a very important part. But the point is that with this concept of smell, sometimes we go in and clean with this pine sol stuff. It absolutely knocks you down. And it's so strong, you can't breathe in there, much less use the restroom. So the concept of what does it smell like? And if it's not clean, what does it smell like? If you have a mildew smell, you know, when you sit down in furniture and it's old or mildewy, what does it smell like? So you're looking for smell, musky smells. What does it touch like? You know, is it sticky? When I sit down, is it sticky? They just did a report. In fact, Jimmy Fallon said that they just found out that the armrest, bothers me, armrest on a plane will stay dirty for at least a week before they clean it. So, you know, is it sticky? A little humor there, a little humor. But what does it touch like? Is it sticky? Is it clean? Are the magazines fresh or are they worn out? What does it sound like? You know, really, when we walk in, what does it sound like? And sometimes just a bit of music can actually bring down the anxiety level. It can actually give you some soothing. You know, it's used nationally. So is that something that needs to happen if that's in fact the problem? Or if in fact, you know, the person at the front desk is projecting out into the waiting room, what does it sound like? You know, again, questions. And then what does it taste like? Anything I serve must taste good. So I'm not going to serve old coffee. I'm not going to serve anything that's not good if I'm going to serve something. Does that make sense? Including my vending, if I'm doing vending. So, 5 cents. So what do y'all think about 5 cents? 5 cents, big Brook for me right now.
I think it varies widely by state.
It varies widely by site. Okay. You know what I found at this Embassy Suites, one hotel just has an odor in the lobby from all the plants and the chemicals they use for the plant. So you smell it, well, what is that odor? Not quite sure, but it's there. Again, is that a pleasant experience? Nice plant. So it varies by location. Others? Very good. Thank you. Others? Yes.
Part of me saying back the group home, that is that house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who've been inside, they make comments, it really looks nice. Everything is new. And even the kids who are coming in are saying things like, you must really care about us if you're going to let us stay in a place that's this nice. So the staff said they wanted to just go work up there because once they saw it, at first it was a scary place, and my staff went, oh, now they're like, wait a minute, I want to work up there. You know, because the environment is so welcoming, so the colors are nice, the furniture is nice, it's just a nice place to be. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I think, again, part of my philosophy, and has been for a long time, I know in Cumberland we have staff bathrooms and we have, you know, client bathrooms. Our problem is we maintain our staff bathrooms much better than our clients. And just a matter of practice. I would go in and look at them, and we started putting in sign-in, sign-out sheets for maintenance staff so we could monitor if they were checking them hourly. But we have what we call Roll Friday. Any bathroom, we painted them all a consistent color, but every Friday, any graffiti was rolled out, painted. Every Friday, the last thing that the maintenance staff did, so Monday was dry. Because graffiti gets graffiti. So, you know, understanding if you offer something nice, people will try try to take care of it. If something is in the face, they typically add to it, is my experience. So the whole point is back to what you're saying is, if I can offer something nice, will people help me take care of it? And I think the answer, from my experience, has been yes. You know, the lobby we built for our clients, I was told they were destroyed. We had so many positive comments from clients and families about what a nice place, and this has been such a nice, because we have them sitting, as I said, in the hallway with their feet sticking out, and we had people walking over them because the hallway wasn't wide enough, with 2 rows of chairs on each side to get through. So they're constantly, excuse me, you know, that's not good. But just keep thinking about this. Keep thinking about your 5 senses. When you look at it, what do you see, those kinds of things, what does it smell? Now this is the action plan that I've sent up to Jean, and she has for you, so I'm going to go to that. But this is an action plan that we find is very helpful for you, and let me get to that. Here we go. But this action plan is really simply that, is that I've tried to put into this action plan the actual service area opportunities on the left. Can everybody read that in the back? Can you all read that there? In the back? You good? Okay. Typical customer service concerns. And so when you go around, you really assess these areas. And it could be through mystery visits, it could be on-site inspection, it could be, you know, you're going down and just taking a look at your locations and saying, what does it look like? But then what are your solutions? Meaning, we can't rebuild the building, but we could repaint the lobby. You follow what I'm saying? We could do this as a solution if that's a concern. But greetings and friendliness, time on hold. And I've gone through all of these for you, so I'm not going to go back through them. But the whole concept here is that you start to look more individually at customer service indicators than this broad customer service. So what I try to do is break it down to where it starts to say, what about the identification signs, the parking, the landscaping, the entrance, is it ADA accessible, ease of opening doors, lobby area, magazines, all of those things, restrooms available, cleanliness, signage, background music, those kinds of things. And if it's not there and you think it could help, then be sure to respond to that. Politeness, attentiveness with the response, reception, intake, professional boundaries, language, on and on and on. And I've gone through most of these, so I'm not going to go back through them. But you really go all the way from front desk, all the way through the intake process, what type of efficiency of financial intake, what wait times. Now the important part of this one, and Joy is going to help you measure what you're doing now for both clinical and clerical admin to get people into treatment. But basically that's going to be something that you will be measuring. But it's also something you can continue to measure. Access to the clinicians, your own customer service, scheduling the next appointment, follow-up, timely and accurate client billings, da-da-da-da. So it's really a plan designed for you as a team to say, this is going to become a priority for us, so we're going to continue to monitor it. You may not monitor this monthly for sure, but every 6 months, every quarter. Do you look at it annually? Do you look at it at some periodic time frame to say, let's go back through this to see if we got some areas that we could actually improve? Questions or thoughts about the action plan? You see how it can be used. Now, managers of locations or sites, back to my location versus another, can you see how this might be helpful for your location? More importantly, would you agree, and Deborah, I need to ask you this, but could it be good information for you or the leadership to see that there's some concerns about customer service at this location? So you could do this by location. You certainly want to.